Hey, everybody. Hey, Scott. How you doing?
Hey, I'm great. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm happy that you're here too. It's like you won the lottery or something, right? You never
Yeah, I
know.
did. Even better.
You
This
got
is
picked,
priceless.
completely randomized here. So thanks for joining. And anybody who is out there watching, whether you're on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube or LinkedIn, be sure to share with us, drop in the comments where you're joining from, ask us questions. Something that you wish that ... whether it's you knew or somebody else knew, part of our conversation here today. And if you've seen us have these conversations over the last couple of months, you know that we are talking about my newest book, Things I Wish ... New, that I'm really proud of because it has, including myself, 50 educators involved. So very briefly, before we bring on the other guests, besides Scott, who is here with me right now, I'm Rachelle and love learning, educator, author, consultant, attorney. Like, I kid you not, I'm always in school, whether I'm teaching or I'm a student, which I'm currently a student in school. But I love writing and I love sharing stories of others. And so that is enough about me. And I'm going to toss this over to Scott right now to tell us a little bit about him.
Hey everyone, Scott Nunes here, former educator turned EdTech coach and now district engagement advocate with Canva. So if you're interested in using Canva, definitely hit me up at Mr. Nunes Teach or email me at snunes@canva.com and I'll be sure to take care of you.
Yeah, Canva man, you are. And I'm pretty sure I just left you a message about Canva not that long ago either. So glad to have you join. And he's not joking. Definitely reach out to Scott for info on Canva.
Yeah.
All right, Scott, I'm doing if I remove myself, I'll be back.
Okay, sounds good.
Oh, hey. All right. Our next guest we have is Jennifer. Jennifer, thank you for joining us and for indulging me with my random pick. So for anybody who doesn't know you, may know you from social media and interact with you, but could you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Oh, goodness. What do? I do a little bit of this and a little bit of that. I think kind of like you, I've done some consulting. I'm in the process of, first of all, I'm Jennifer Haston-Maciejewski. Hey guys. Hey. I work at Greenfield Central in Indiana, but I've been a contributing author in several different books, and I got my own book deal, and I'm working on it now, just knocking it out one page at a time, slowly but surely. I sat around for 5 months and thought somehow this book is going to magically write itself, and sure enough, it didn't. So I just had to book a room and knock 70 pages out in 3 days. But it's all up here. That's what I keep saying. So that's what I'm working on currently.
Yeah.
Right?
That's awesome.
I got this. It's coming along.
Yeah,
so
it's exciting, and it is. Wow, that's great. It's a slow process, and everybody has their different kind of, way to go about writing it. Some people sit down and actually write, and some people just crank it out. I was cranking out my first 3 at the same time, and people were like, "Are you crazy?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, but it was good when you had writer's block because you just go to the other tab." So we're going to learn more about you, and now I'm going to bring up our next guest, Debbie.
Hey, Rachelle. Hi, everyone.
Hey. Hello. So as Scott and Jennifer did, would you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and any maybe writing projects? I mean, we all have writing projects things going, but tell us about yours.
Sure. So I'm an elementary school tech coach in Northern Virginia. I'm a blogger. I've gotten a chance to guest blog on your blog quite a few times. I am an author. My book, Transform Techie Notes, was published last May.
Ooh, awesome.
So very excited about that. And I have my next contributing author book besides Things I Wish ... New, which is coming out in June. I wrote a chapter for AMP Global EDU, all about engagement. So I'm really, really excited about that opportunity as well. All sorts of fun writing going on.
Yeah. And I was fortunate to get to read your book before the book came out.
Yes, you were.
So I get some of those special opportunities, which I really enjoy. And I think that's why I like writing and editing so much. It's just you just get to read and learn from others. And then when you get to see that final product too, but also as the person who's writing it, to get that feedback from people in the different perspectives, and having, like peer feedback group or focus group or whatever, or being part of something like where you are a contributing author. Lainey Rowell always joked, she's like, how many books have you written by now? I'm like, well, you can't count like where you've just put in like, I don't know, in some cases a chapter, or sometimes it's just like a short paragraph or vignette. I'm like, I'm not counting it like this little paragraph as a book, but it's still nice to be involved in those processes with everybody else. So, well, thank you for joining us. And so let's talk about this book, and of course, any other writing projects, or for anybody who is watching. I'm sure everybody that's here with me today would encourage you that if you are thinking about any writing, blogging, writing a book, whatever it is, even just post on LinkedIn, like those articles in some of those different communities. Everybody has ideas to share, and your stories matter. And you might not think that it can help somebody, but you might even just help that one person that needs it the most at that time and make such a difference. And so that's kind of what my inspiration is and motivation is behind when I started my own blogging. I just thought that the idea of blogging was cool. I didn't really know what it was, but I'm like, I think I'm going to go into blogging, and had no idea that it was like web logging. I'm like, well, that's interesting. That actually makes sense. And Scott's laughing at me, but that's a true story with no pun intended, like my other book. Unfortunately, that book was lessons that one kid taught us. I guess I could be that one kid, but you just start, like you just sit down and write. And Brene Brown, who is one of my favorite writers, I forget which book it was in that I read of hers, but it was during a time, I think I was in between like some of the books. I'd already read the first couple, but she had a quote in there, and she said, write the book that you need to read. And that kind of was a good focus. And we all need different things, but I think that helped me to kind of, like I wish, especially with this book, I wish I would have known this, or I wish I would have had these different perspectives. So for anybody who's just joining us right now, you can go back and rewind for introductions, but we're talking about things I wish ... knew, which actually was going to be titled Things I Wish I Knew. And then when ... and primarily for teachers just getting started earlier in your career. But then I opened it up to my network, people that had already written in other books. And then just on Twitter, like, here's some prompts. Do you want to write? Fill in the blank. How would you fill that in? And I got all of these stories that I loved reading. And then I realized, gosh, I have a lot of stories. How am I going to put this into one book? Maybe this needs to be like a two-parter, like for teachers, for administrators. But then I thought, no, put it all together, because everybody can read it, even if you just get 2 copies for your school, let people take turns reading the book. But the stories in this are so impactful. So it's made a big difference. And then I was fortunate to have extra time to work on it over the pandemic a little bit and get even more stories. So like I said, including myself, there are 50 in this one. And what I love about it is that everybody's picture is in the back. So you can see who the voice is behind what you've read. And anyway, so that's how it started, kind of. Things I wish I knew. How many times I'd said, oh, I wish I knew that when I started teaching, or gee, I wish I knew the power of social media, or oh gosh, I wish I knew that I needed a mentor. And so that's, my beginning of this, but I'll toss the question over to you, the 3 of you, and to anybody who's joining us, because we have some people watching and liking, so we want to hear from you. So whoever wants to go first, if you want to share a little bit about your story, or it doesn't even have to be about your story that you wrote. Maybe it's something else that you realize after the fact, like, yeah, I wish I knew that.
Well, I think that as, blogging for me was kind of something I kind of fell into, and I kind of just did it for myself. And then when people started noticing, I was like, wow. And I remember the first time I, guest blogged for you, and I was like, wow, this is something that's actually like doing something. And I'm always honored when I'm able to share something and it resonates with other people, because you don't know what other people don't know. And when I started sharing my story, somebody told me, you have a story that's different from everyone else's. And we all have stories that are different. And so if we don't share our stories, then other people will never hear them. And that's one of the things that I loved about this book, both writing it and reading it, was that I loved being able to share my story, but I really loved seeing everyone else's stories as well. Like, it was just such a fun book to read because I was like, oh, these are all people I know, but I didn't know this about them.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a few people over the last couple of years have said, we ask each other, oh, did you read this book or this book? Because people always ask for book recommendations. And I always hesitate to say my own because I feel like, oh, is that bad to like promote my own? But with these ones, it's nice to have so many different stories involved in it. And I always say, like, I personally am not that interesting, but all of these other people are way more interesting. But you never know which story is going to resonate with somebody. And this book has so many different ones, so many different perspectives, years in education, some people who are no longer in education, with some people who are retired that shared stories like, I really wish I knew this when I started teaching. But Debbie, you're right too, about just sitting down and writing something. And people might say, oh, well, I don't have the time. My number one secret is I use the voice to text. Granted, sometimes it's a hot mess of when I look at it and I'm like, what in the world did I say that was like hamburger and fries? And I'm like, wait, I know what it is. But it has gotten better. And that has been a lifesaver. I know I went to a conference in Milwaukee at US Summer Spark. Great conference about 4 or 5, probably 5 years ago. And it was between sessions, and I took my phone and I went to this side classroom where nobody was. And I had a blog to write for, I think Teach Thought at the time. I was just doing some guest blogging, which is where I started. And I was pacing in the room and I had my phone and I was just talking into it. And Jason Bretzman, who wrote the book Personalized PD with Kenny, if you know that book, they used to run a chat. There were 2 doors to the room and I saw him walk by, and then he walked by the second door and he like stopped and he leaned back and he turned his head and I paused. He's like, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were on your phone. I said, or talking on the phone. I said, I'm not, I'm writing a blog. He was like, wait, what? I said, I'm writing a blog. So the idea is it could be voice notes that you then transcribe. It can be Post-it notes. And after you teach a class and you're thinking, maybe you're trying a new tool, like I'm going to say Canva because Scott's here in your classroom, and or make it learning sticky, and you got Post-it notes and you stick them around your room and those types of things, and then you just add up those ideas, and next thing you know, you have 5 ideas that you turn out into a blog. It doesn't have to be any certain length. It's just the sharing of your story. So I love those things that you said, Debbie.
And I also think that I've become a better educator through the reflective process of blogging. So I think if you can take that time to reflect, that also helps you to improve as an educator as well. See what you did well, what could be better, etc.
Absolutely. Good, Jennifer.
I think what I love most about this book and books like this is we all do have our one lived experience, this lens, and that's the filter. That's what we filter every experience we have in life through, is our one lived experience lens. But reading a book like this allows us a fraction of a moment to look through somebody else's lens, and we don't often have that opportunity. So it gives us a different perspective, maybe one that we haven't thought of. And speaking of me writing my book and you voice to texting it, I think I just tweeted recently that I will not make a single dime off of this book because I'm going to be paying my editor forever. I have voice to text my entire book so far. It is a hot mess, but and it includes conversations with like the person who delivered DoorDash because I forgot to I've got to go through this.
Yeah.
Nice.
Do I need a tip? What is this?
That's funny.
Yeah, I've been there too.
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point with that, Jennifer. I too am writing a book, and I love that you mentioned that it sat there for 5 months, because that's pretty much what mine has done. I have a bunch written already. I don't know how many pages, somewhere between like 10 and 20. And it's just sat there since I've taken this Canva job. So it's been like 6 months since I've even touched it, but it's all in here. I've been working on it, and I think I need to do something similar to what you and Rachelle are talking about. Just lock myself away from everyone and everything else and just crank it out, because it's there ready to be poured out, and poured out a lot in my pieces within Rachelle's book. But life's changed. Like those things really don't resonate as much with me, especially the ed tech coach thing, because now I'm in this new Canva role. And when I was thinking about it in preparation for this, like, well, yeah, I'm not doing the ed tech coach thing, but really a lot of those same lessons even apply to
Mm.
going out into the private sector and working for an ed tech company like Canva. A lot of those things can really fit. So I'm thinking, oh, to your point, Debbie, I need to share that out there. You never know who it's going to affect. In fact, I had to turn off my mic and find all the little messages. My LinkedIn is blowing up because we have some jobs open and people are hungry for it, like all day long. I'm getting messages about this. And so I think I have a real chance to help some people out. Just like Rachelle, I want to help out educators everywhere. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm just doing it from a different angle. I'm going for the broader reach approach. Instead of just sticking to one classroom, one district, I'm going global through Canva.
Just all the things.
All the things.
But I just think it's just so awesome. Like, as each of us has a different way that we're sharing our message, but yet we're all sharing that message of, empowering educators and supporting educators
in different ways.
Yeah.
Right. We're taking our expertise and our one lived experience and sharing it out with the world. So
yeah, absolutely.
Powerful.
And there are, like, after the book has been out now since December, which is hard to believe, it's already April, but there were so many other stories. I was like, oh, I forgot about that one. I actually had written a list that this book and which other one? I had a world language educators book I was working on around the same time. And there might have been another one in there. I can't remember, maybe just the two. But I had these notes that went back to the prior December, which is when my True Story Lessons That One Kid Taught Us book came out. And I actually had like a notebook where I was writing just things over the years, lessons, interactions with students, funny stories. And I showed the students. They're like, how do you come up with these things that you write about? I said, well, it's just, I'm thinking back, reflecting over the years. And they're like, are you writing about us? And I'm like, well, I just might be, but, I'm not necessarily naming you in the book, of course. But I did. I had a notebook, and some of those stories did go into the true story. And then some of the things were shared in this one as well. And I still have extra ones. And everybody keeps saying like, oh, are you working on another book? And I'm like, well, yeah, I guess kind of, but it's not
Always.
totally informed. I mean, yeah, I'm doing too much blogging. Like I was working on 5 blogs last week, and I'm like, and I'm working on my doctorate. So there was a ton of writing. And I said, I think that's what inspired me to kind of pursue additional education to give me the break from actually like the book writing. But I do like it. I like it more is sharing somebody else's stories, or being the person that might be editing for you, Jennifer, because I do a lot of like copy editing and stuff like that too, which I enjoy, because you get that different perspective from somebody else, or things that you didn't think of, and it help you to kind of like, you might have a like perfect example. One of the students for the first book, I said, hey, would you like to contribute? And I gave the ballpark figure of like 500 words for a short vignette, based on a quote, because it was quotes that push our thinking. And she said, I don't know, that's a lot of words. She sounded like me for the first blog I wrote, which was for SurveyMonkey, who said 750 words. I went, what am I going to write for 750 words? But I did it. And so she wrote, and I read it, and I was like, gosh, this is so powerful. She shared a Google document with me, and I said, do me a favor, go and just maybe today, maybe tomorrow, think about this quote again, or think about what you've written about. Open up the Google document and just sit and just talk out loud. Don't worry about sitting down typing, just sit and just talk. I said, when you're done, just share it with me. So at about 2 a.m, not that I was awake at that point, close, but when I woke up, I saw that she had to share this document, and it was like 1,900 words. And granted, some of it was like, just, like it needed to be trimmed down. But what I did is I went through, I didn't make any, my cat, co-editor, showing up, guest appearance. Sorry about that. I went through and I didn't make any edits. I just put in comments, like questions that I had, like, well, why did you feel this? Or what made you feel this way? Or how did this impact you? And so then she went back and kind of tweaked it. And then I think at the end, she ended up with like 2,200 words. And I said, oh, 500 words is a lot to write, right? She's like, I know. And she said, yeah, but you did it. I said, I didn't do it. I said, you did it. It was just, I gave you some extra questions to kind of like add to it of what if I was the reader, like what I might want to know. And it was all about failure, and a tremendous for a junior in high school to write that. So I like sharing the stories. So that's the first question. Now here's the next question for you and for anybody who's joining in or later, because this will be recorded and will be shared out, and we would love to connect with you. But what is something that you wish others knew about education? And I'm not going to put anybody on the spot. I'm just going to, throw that one out there to anybody that's watching or to anybody that's here.
It's okay to not know what you're doing all the time.
Oh, yeah. I'm good at that one.
Yeah. Sometimes you are just making it up and going with the flow, and do it with confidence. That's what it's 90% of everything. Just pretend like you know what you're doing half the time. And then other times admitting that maybe you don't to your kids. I do that a lot. I'm like, you know what? I really have no idea I don't know what we're doing today. Okay. It was a rough night last night. We're make it up as we go along and just let it happen, guys. And sometimes those are the best days. Yeah. But it's okay to not have everything together or have like the most Pinteresting room or, It's okay. Take it down a notch. That's it. Just, it's okay.
And I also think like there's a lot of, teachers talking about how tired they are, but I think it's important to acknowledge that teachers are really doing the best they can.
Yeah.
I mean, I know at least in my school, we have really large classes because, it's hard to find people who are qualified to meet those roles. We have teachers who have 30 kids in classrooms. That's a lot that's a lot. And the teachers have more needs than ever. And so if you're a classroom teacher, you're doing a lot, and you really need to give yourself credit for what you are doing. And if you're somebody that's like in my role as a tech coach, I try to do everything I can to support them, because as hard as my job is, their job is even harder.
Yeah. Yeah. And Scott, before you say anything, if I'm not trying to cut you off, but I want to say happy Tuesday, Brett.
Yeah.
Joining us. Happy Tuesday to you. I had a chance. And Scott, I know you were going to join us last week to talk about the metaverse, but thanks for joining in. And I agree, Brett, with you totally. It's great to hear their voices and their thoughts as well. And so, Debbie, thank you for sharing. Scott, did you have anything? And one other thing before you. I keep cutting you off.
Jump in. No, you're fine.
But what Jennifer said, it is okay. And I think, that's something that I wish I knew, that it was okay to not know, because I was teaching the way I had been taught, as many of us go through that process, or whatever your role is, like what you see, you're like, this worked for me, so I'm going to do this, but it doesn't always work. And we don't always have the answers, but we feel like we have to know everything. And I think that was a problem that I had for years, and a struggle, and it was uncomfortable. So if students would say, hey, how do you say this word in Spanish? I'm like, I don't know. And I wanted to secretly look it up in the dictionary. Google Translate didn't exist at the time. But, and I felt bad about that. But I don't know all the words in English, let alone in French, which I learned first, and then Spanish. And I have said to my students, like, they'll come in first thing in the morning, what are we doing today? I'm like, I don't know. I'm going to make it up when you come in fifth period. But right now it's like 7:20. I got 4 class periods before yours, whatever. And there have been times where I start with something and I'm like, yeah, I don't think this is going to work. Or we try it and I went, oh, why do we do that? And then they'll go, because you made it up. I went, yeah, my bad. At one point, kids used to put tally marks on the board when they're like, oh, you made a mistake. I said, you stick around long enough. I make like hundreds a day. It's nothing. So Brett said, happy Tuesday. So, all right, Scott, I don't want to call it the floor, but the speaking space is yours.
I just want to affirm what everybody said, especially just the last part, right? You got to give yourself a little grace. I know that word is like super overused right now, but I think there's a lot of truth in that, and kind of tagging on and plus wanting it. You got to make time for yourself for whatever it is you love to do. If it's go for a hike, binge watch TV, read a book, talk to a friend, jump on Twitter and have conversations, be on podcasts and shows like this, you have to make that time. The work will always be there. It's not going to go away. Even my current role, there is more work to do in a given day than I can do, and I can work all weekend, all night, stay up till 3 a.m, wake up the next day at 6 and still work, and it still won't get done. So hit that pause button, take care of yourself, find some friends, find a mentor, find a coach. Interact with people like Rachelle, myself, Debbie, and Jennifer on Twitter. We're here to help support, share our stories, help to share and amplify your story. And thanks so much, Kevin, for jumping in. Follow Kevin. He's got a book too, all about 3D printing. Maybe that's your thing or you want to try it. So yeah, take some risks and take care of yourself. Nobody else will except you. So definitely put yourself first, and then students and the job second.
That is great advice. And how often do you think anybody, educators especially, follow that?
Hardly ever. We get guilted into working.
Yeah. Those the martyrdom syndrome, right? I have a presentation I always do called Selfcare in a Selfless Field, and it's the unprofessional development. And it's all about just, like I said earlier, take it down a notch, and it might not be bubble baths and treat yourself all the time. Sometimes it's making a dentist appointment, and sometimes it's sometimes it is going and sitting in a hotel for a day. But
yeah,
it's about digging deep and finding what's meaningful to you in self-care. So that's important. I love that.
I just think a lot of times we have this feeling that we have to do everything that we can for our students.
Yeah.
Right.
And sometimes all of that everything you can't pour from an empty cup. And so I think that's one of the hardest balance pieces about being an educator is that yes, you're going to give your kids your all, but you also need to take care of you.
Yeah, and Brett has added, I wish people knew how powerful their thanks and gratitude are when shared with their teachers. Teaching is a challenging and tiring job, but we thrive. I love the word thrive on knowing what we do is making a difference. And that is so true. But sometimes it's difficult to know that because it's just you don't often realize it. You don't know the impact that you're making. We don't necessarily hear it. I mean, sometimes, friends, colleagues, your network might hear of work that you do, or you tell them and they give you that feedback. Or sometimes you have students that are like, I really like class a lot more this year than I did last year. You're like, oh, okay. I don't know how I feel about that, but please tell me more. But there's a lot of great advice there. And Scott, you're talking about like that time, and Dr. Desiree Alexander had written about that. It's like that day. And there are so many different stories shared in this book on a range of topics, from starting education, from being, later on in your years of your teaching career, from administrators who are saying like, yeah, we're not coming into your classroom because we're trying to catch you doing something. Like we want to be with you and the kids, which that's so hard for them to do. And I think a lot of teachers don't necessarily know that, like, because the perception for years was, I better make sure everything's perfect. Like they just want to see the kids and you and what's going on, because sometimes it's so hard for them to connect with that because they're pulled in so many different directions, and having that perspective. And then also writing what people wish parents knew about how we care about their kids and what we're doing and the difference that it makes. And then even in the end of the book, anybody that knows Tatul and Justin, at the end, if you've read the book, there's just this list, and Melissa Hayes to just have these running lists. And the funny thing about Voice is that Tatul and Justin in Voxer were going back and forth in our little group. Like, I wish that teachers knew this, and I wish that administrators knew that. And so I transcribed all of that as best as I could and put that in the back. So they will actually be joining I think it's actually next Monday. So we've had this half hour has flown by, and I don't know if any of you or anybody that is joining in, thank you to those that have chimed in. We're so happy that you did. If there are any last words that you have for anybody about the book, about your experience, and there's no pressure. Anything. Like if you had one bit of advice to tell somebody, I think you need to do this, or one thing, the biggest thing you wish you knew that has made a difference. I'll start. I'll give you some thinking time. Okay. My biggest thing was connect, and with students, with your colleagues, with anyone, because like I didn't do that for years. And that one simple word leads to so much. Like, I'm connected with you in this space, but through this book, through our stories. And that's something I wish I knew a very long time ago. So connect.
I can kind of build on that whole idea of connection, especially when it comes to connecting with other educators. I mean, this is my 22nd year as an educator, and I didn't join Twitter or do any social media until 2017.
Wow.
And it's changed my life. I would not have done any of the things I did in the last 5 years if it hadn't been for all of those things. Connecting with other educators, learning from them, learning with them has changed my life. So don't be afraid and think that Twitter is just for celebrities or social media is for celebrities. Take a risk and try it, because you're going to be surprised. You won't feel alone anymore. And I think that's the biggest thing that hurts teachers, is feeling alone.
Yeah.
You stole mine, Debbie.
It's okay. You can build on it. You can build on it.
I will. So I'll +1 that again and add also trust your gut and don't be afraid to take those risks. Like Debbie, my Twitter journey started 2018. I went to a conference. They literally made me get on Twitter. It was like a huge part of the conference. And I'm so grateful because it completely transformed my life for the better. And, trust your gut. If you want to go for a different role, try a different grade, try something new in the classroom, just do it. Know thyself and don't worry about anybody else. Take those risks.
Yeah.
If you fail, guess what? Tomorrow's a new day. You can come back from it. You can. Trust me.
Yep.
Yeah. And so you just said know thyself, and mine is to be authentic, because I went into one job that I didn't want, and I was like, I want to see if I can fake my way into this job. I had no plan of taking it, but it was just like a social test I wanted to do. And it was so awful. I was bumbling and fumbling. I do that anyway, but it was even worse. And so I think I went into the next job interview and I said, I'm going to be 100% authentically me and see what happens, because I didn't want to get a job for a place and then them have expectations of me that I couldn't meet. And so even with my students, like, everything I do is I try to be always 100% authentic, because I am a hot mess, and my kids know it. And they're like, oh my gosh, Miss Haston, you are the weirdest person I've ever met. And I just randomly bought a conga drum, and I am now becoming a conga expert. And my kids, I'm like posting videos up on the screen. They're coming like, what are you doing? I thought you just bought like a juice harp. And I'm like, yeah, that too.
Oh my gosh.
In the middle of like revamping a school bus that I bought, turning into a tiny home for summer travels. They're like, you're just so weird. But I want them to know. I want them to know who I am and that I am a weird person, and that's just what they're gonna get. And that's what everybody gets. All my teachers around, co-teachers, like, aren't you that hippie lady? And I'm like, that's me.
Yeah, that's me. Yep. Yeah. I have
take it or leave it.
I may or may not have some cats, but there's a sign in my room that says crazy cat lady. And I had a student that said, like, how many cats do you have? And I said, how many? They went, are you like some crazy cat lady or something? I go, that's what that sign says over there on the window. And they were like, oh my gosh, you have it. And I have a lot of just different things, art and different things. And I would have never done that years ago, to let them know who I am. But it's so important to know. And when people will say, and hello, what's that?
That's part of connecting. That's part of all of that, like connecting.
And I'm sure that we can all speak to it, but the more authentic I've become in my journey, the better my journey has been.
Yeah, I agree. And when people say, oh, that's weird, or somebody's weird, I go, we're all weird. Like, we all have something weird about us. That's what makes us unique and different. And so that's it. I got a lot of weirdness. I got a lot of quirks and things, but that's okay. So thank you all for that kind of on the spot question, but I think it was good. And thanks for joining us from Morocco, because that is awesome. And you joined us last time too. So we appreciate you being here with us today. And so thank you to Scott and Debbie and Jennifer for joining in. And shameless last plug, if you haven't gotten a copy, they're actually on sale. If you want the paper, which is nice. I like the book, which is why, thanks, Debbie. I have so many stacked up here, but it's actually 12% discounted on Amazon today, or the Kindle. Or if you're looking for like a PLC or your school for your teachers, you can get them in bulk directly from EduMatch. And when you get them in bulk at quantities of like 25, you even get extra books. And EduMatch has a ton of amazing books available. So just going to throw that out there. So for all of you who joined in now or who are checking us out later, thank you. And we'll be back. Melody and I have a guest on Friday for Thrive O'Clock. And then if Justin and Tatul come on next Monday, we'll be back to talk about their parts in the book. So as always, thanks for joining in. Thanks to the three of you. And we'll catch you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.